We'll talk about this forever.
Yeah. He almost got it. Hey, Jeff. Where I left it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call the meeting to order. Town of East Greenbush Zoning Board of Appeals, are we online? All right, so officially, meeting is open. We have a quorum. I'll start with an introduction of our board members, starting down on my right.
Tom Hickey,
John Conway,
Matt Ostergood, Scott Scrivell, Bob Seward.
I am the chairman, Jeff Pangburn. To my right, we have Bill Hesney, our zoning board attorney, Allison Lovely, our secretary, and Kateri Radigan, our court stenographer. We also have our director of planning and zoning in attendance, Adam Yagelski. Before I get into why we're here tonight, just a couple rules of order, I guess, or COVID-related items. We are allowed to take masks off while we are sitting. We're 6 feet apart, socially distanced. You do not need to wear a mask. The audience is 6 feet apart unless they've come together. You're welcome to keep a mask on if you wish. When you come up to speak to the board, please come up to the podium, no closer. You're welcome to take your mask off at that point. That's fine to address the board if you wish. Members of the public, same thing. Come up to the podium to speak if you wish. Welcome to take the mask off. What we will do is hold the first public hearing and get through the public portion. At that point, we'll most likely close the public hearing, and because that'll be the end of the public portion of the meeting, any interaction with the board or the public, we'll ask those in attendance for the first public hearing to leave. We'll welcome in the audience for the second public hearing, and we'll tackle that one. When we go to, after we close that second public hearing, which we have 2 on the agenda tonight, we will then ask the public if they wish to stay or not. We invite the people from the first public hearing back in if you wish to come back in and listen to workshop. There'll be no more public interaction. You're welcome to leave and go home after the first one, and call Allison tomorrow to find out the if we get through workshop disposition of the appeal. You can find out that way tomorrow, or again, welcome to stay. Also, welcome to log into the Town of East Greenbush YouTube channel, correct, Adam? And pick up the public streaming of any portion thereafter too from home, or wherever you wish to watch. So, with that, to review why we are here tonight, an applicant for a variance is being afforded a public hearing to appeal the decision of the code enforcement officer. The legal criteria used by the board in determining the disposition of the appeal is defined by state law, is documented in the comprehensive zoning law, and was provided to the applicant at the time of their application. Based on this guidance, the applicant is expected to present his or her case to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Then the public will be afforded an opportunity to comment on the application. We request all comments and questions be addressed to the board and not directly to the applicant. The board will then review the materials submitted, as well as the testimony presented at this hearing by both the applicant and the public. Will either determine the disposition of the appeal by a majority vote tonight, or table the public hearing to a future date. As per town code, any member of the public wishing to speak today shall not be required to disclose his or her name, address, or any other contact-related information. We do ask that anyone speaking tonight please use the podium in order to maintain social distancing. So with that, we will open public hearing 2020-06, 7:30 p.m. on September 8th, 2020 at the Red Barn. The appeal of Domini Family Irrevocable Trust of 8 Hillview Avenue, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to construct a 250 square foot addition. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law, sections 2.5.1 D05B. The existing garage shall be located no closer to the principal building than 12 feet. The proposed addition leaves a distance of 5 feet to the existing garage. Therefore, the proposed action requires an area variance for the property located at 8 Hillview Avenue, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 154.60-5-3. We have notification of zoning review action. After having carefully reviewed the information submitted as part of the subject referral, the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. If approved, the cladding on the residence and garage located with 10 feet should be fire rated. Imagine that means within 10 feet should be fire rated. Dated August 27, 2020, we have a motion from the planning board by Chairman Maston as follows. The planning board accepts Nancy Kupiec's report and forwards the report to the zoning board of appeals with the planning board's recommendation that the building department ensure that all fire rated construction requirements are met. See attached report for details. You have the detailed report attached. That motion carried by a 7-0 vote. Members were provided that report electronically, so I won't repeat it here. It was also available online after the planning board meeting. We have the application signed by the applicant and an authorization form where Robert and Stephanie Dominique give permission to Frank Cardacio, thank you, sorry, to represent them tonight. One last order of business. We are a board of 7 members. We have one vacancy on the board, but so it still requires a 4 vote to carry any motion, 4 out of 7 majority vote. So just for clarification. With that, I'd like to invite either of you up just to present the application, what's being asked, and ideally go through the area variance criteria on the application form.
Okay, I can take this mask off?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, well, thank you.
All right, yeah, I'm Frank Carlacio, representing Stephanie and Robert Dominy at 8 Hillview Avenue, and also the builder of the structure, if we can get approved. It is an addition, 250 square feet at the back of the building. Once we found out that the addition, the drawings showed that we were within 12 feet because of the zoning law, we then applied for this variance. We don't see any problem with the addition because we're going to be within 6 feet, I guess, or 5 feet. So that's why we need the variance. But our case is we're not infringing on any side yard setbacks. If we were to abide by the 12 feet, we would have to shift the building further to the side yard property, and it would be closer, it still would be within the minimum, but it would be offset from the house, the profile of the house. And therefore, architecturally, it doesn't work and it would be more costly because we're trying to make it so that we're gonna side it, everything's gonna match the existing house, gable roof going out the back 18 feet, and therefore the roof lines will match. It's a more cost-effective project, and we don't see how it's gonna infringe on any of the side yard setbacks. There's plenty of room in the back of the property also. These 5 points here, should I go through these 5 points here?
We appreciate it, thank you.
Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. We feel that no, not at all, will not reduce the character of the neighborhood or create any hardship for nearby properties. Item 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. No, the variance will allow the addition to be constructed more in line with the architectural lines of the house and not diminish the side yard setback more than the existing house is already set. Item 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I guess hard to determine substantial, but like we said, we're going to be within 5 feet of the existing garage. Where the zoning along the house says you got to be 12 feet side. Is that substantial? I guess that's what, is that what it's saying here? What it asked me to explain?
Yeah, so, 1 foot out of 12 foot likely would be substantial. Asking for 7 out of the 12 is substantial. So it's just have to work through it.
4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on a physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood or district. Not at all. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Not at all. It was not self-created, the difficulty, and like I said earlier, in order to allow them to gain more space for their house and improve their house, we need to have this variance approved. Would like to get it approved this from the board.
Thank you. With that, I'll open up for questions from the board.
A couple of questions on the diagram I'm looking at here. Do you have the number, how far is the house as it sits now from the garage?
The house right now is 12 feet.
12 feet?
12 feet plus or minus. I think I measured it right, Bob. It's probably 12 feet.
And the dimensions, the basic dimensions are 18 by how much?
18 by 12 foot 8. 12 foot 8 across the back of the house. Project 8 foot out towards the back. Backyard.
I think there used to be a deck attached at that point to the house.
Pardon me?
There was formerly a deck or another room attached?
There was a deck, yes. An outdoor pressure treated wood
Do you know how far out that went?
deck.
The deck was 12 feet, 12 by 12.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Clarification, do you know what the offset was to the garage? Then,
With the deck.
yeah,
Is it on the map, I mean, on the photo?
No, I don't have it here. Well, it was 12, it was, what'd you say, 10 by 12 or 12 by 12?
What's that?
12 by 12?
12 by 12, yeah.
So if it was 12 by 12, it went out 12 feet, so, and 12 foot across.
12 by 12.
But it was
Just the
shifted,
stairs
it was
came.
shifted more to the left, away from the garage, so it probably met the 12 foot thing, but I'm not sure,
thank you.
Well, that raises another question, because the door that's there right now is directly opposite the garage, and I think that's where,
Well, did that, you know,
is that the way it was?
The stairs used to go down toward the garage, into the driveway. Or onto blacktop, rather.
And then the old deck was next to it?
The old deck was attached to the stairs.
yeah, they basically came out that door
Okay.
and had it go to the right on a little bit of a landing, extend it 3 foot out to the right to the deck. and
L shape.
The stairs came back down.
I assume in the pictures, there was anchor posts. Was that to the old deck?
The old deck, yes.
Okay.
Is it, I know the zoning law, with the old deck, the pressure treated deck still, even though it's not a living space, have to fall within the zoning, that 12 foot zoning? Or that's a question, really, it's viewed at this point, but I'm just curious.
It's a good question, I'm not sure the answer.
The deck was there when they bought the property.
Oh, okay. And the garage was also?
Yeah.
And so pushing it to the side of the house that is not closest to the garage, are you trying to line up the gable of the roof with the existing pitch of the
Yes.
roof?
Yes.
And so that's where you're trying to make it be contiguous right down with the existing outside edge of the wall, and you want that pitch to remain the same.
Right,
So offsetting it would create a different gable.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a 12-on-3 pitch now, and we want to maintain it, just like you said, the same ridge beam coming out, the same roof line.
And so to make that, right now you're 18 feet deep, but 12.8 across, which is that, which is the layout? Across the house, so
So
12.
12-8 across the back of the house, 18 feet projected out, perpendicular to the back plane of the house.
And to create that same size, if you were to make it 18 by 12, 8, and pushed it again in the opposite direction of the garage, would you infringe upon the 8-foot setbacks to that side or anything like that?
We're going 18 feet across and 12 foot out. With maintaining a 12-foot
So I'm trying to
from the
picture,
garage.
what I'm trying to picture is the design of it, how would the design of the back of the house lay out against it if you went your full 12 feet away from the garage?
It would not, we couldn't line up the bridge, the roof lines would be different.
No, I understand that, but you can have multiple gable lines in the
Yes.
house, and I'm not saying that you should or not, I'm just asking the question of what shifting the whole thing over, besides the difficulty and the expense of changing that, is how it would affect the other property line. If there's a shed on that
It
other
would
property line
encroach
as well,
closer to the other property line.
but it wouldn't impede upon it.
It wouldn't impede upon the required setback.
And how close
I
would it
don't
be to the
believe
shed?
it, I don't believe it would.
There's, I believe, they had this all up on my screen, so I apologize.
Yeah.
But I believe there was a shed over on the opposite side as well.
Yeah, there's
right?
a shed on the opposite.
And how close would it become to that shed?
That's a garage.
It's-
Okay.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
That's a garage.
Yes.
That, it's probably 15 feet away or something like that.
So again, but I'm talking if you shifted it over and maintained the same dimensions, would you then impede upon that setback on that shed?
The shed,
Well, the other garage on the opposite side.
of the other property.
No, you have a shed over,
Oh, no, that shed is behind the garage.
so it's back beyond.
It's behind.
So it
it.
wouldn't impede upon it going
No.
18 feet deep and then moving back over. If everything moved to that side, you wouldn't impede upon that 12-foot setback from that structure.
No,
Okay.
Frank, are there any trees or any vegetation, to the, if you put the addition onto that right-hand side, is there anything there that's blocking it, nothing like that?
No trees at all.
And it looks like, just based on the diagram, you've kind of created, try to fit it in like a puzzle piece almost. So you got like almost like an L shape to minimize, is that a fair statement? You kind of minimize the distance, or maximize the distance, I'm sorry, from the garage.
Yeah, we try to, exactly, to get that distance, as far away as possible, but also to allow Mr. Dominy to, get through there with his mower and stuff like that.
Is the garage on the west side, the neighbor's garage? There's one, your garage directly in line with the asphalt driveway,
Yes,
motorcycles parked in it.
Yeah.
We have a photo across the back patio looking west, southwest, and there's a second garage here shown. Is that still yours, or is that the
it's
neighbor's?
a garage next door.
That's the neighbor's garage, so that was to top.
That's why I couldn't quite.
There's another garage that way also. Right. And if you were to connect the garage with the addition, you lose your access from the driveway to the backyard.
Yes.
Correct?
What's that change, Jeff? Or we can do that
What was that, Tom?
in that connection. How was that changed? Let's say.
It becomes part of the principal structure, they have to deal with fire code and stuff.
So that's why I was just curious if a breezeway would meet that structure because it doesn't have sidewalks.
It still, once it becomes part, well, I believe once it's connected, they lose the setback issue, but there's still a fire issue, fire code issue.
Sure. I'm
It
just
eliminates. it.
curious if that's an alternate,
I don't know if
by
they can
creating
just
a small
roof,
breezeway.
I don't know if they could just roof the breezeway without it closing it.
That's my question, whether it has to have sidewalls in order to be considered part of the structure or not.
My understanding from talking to the building department also is the fire code issue is only 3 feet between buildings. As long as you're in excess of 3 feet between structures, it's not a fire code issue. So the 5-foot separation meets fire code requirements. It's just, it becomes a planning issue.
Yeah, there's an asterisk there in the recommendation.
From the planning department, not from the building department, and who's the code enforcement officer, so, yeah, no discrepancy between those two things.
So that's an issue for the board to, the county board to take up, or?
No, it's a recommendation back to us, so we could just take it under advisement. There's ways we could either still require it for whatever reason, we could also just kick it back to the building department upon application of any building permit that they confirm whether or not fire rated sheetrock or other requirements are necessary. Kick it right back to code enforcement.
Okay.
So. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, are there any other garages that fall within the 12 feet of a home on that road or on that street at all?
I don't think so. As far as I know.
Good, thank you. Okay, anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to say that, with all due respect, I understand the existing zoning law for that 12 feet is there. I want to talk with other builders, really don't understand why the 12 feet, was picked, but that doesn't make a difference. The only thing I can say is with this addition, from the front of the house, looking at the front of the house, you won't even see that there's an addition on the house, it's on the back. It doesn't encroach any more to the right, looking at the front of the house, or to the left. And it gives the homeowners a nice added space to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have no comment letters received on this appeal. Member of the public wish to make any comments on this appeal?
I guess I'm the only member of the public.
You are.
Can I make a first couple of comments?
Yeah, do you mind stepping up to the podium if you don't mind? And you can feel free to take your mask off if you wish, just makes it easier to hear, but, or if you wish to stand there, it's fine too in here. Kateri, you can hear
I can hear
fine?
fine, this room's great.
Okay. That's good.
Couple comments unrelated to this issue here, but I'm going to my comment about this issue in hand here. You've been doing meetings on Zoom? Yes. And is there any reason why they're not going further with that?
Yes, direction from the town board was felt that the hearings are better for public comment in person. So the meetings have been moved back to this venue where there's a little more space to socially distance. The meetings are still being live streamed on the YouTube channel, so it's there for the public to witness. But it was felt that through comment letters and being able to attend in person, that this was a better form.
Now, I'd suggest you do both because, number one, with the Zoom, you can see all the materials being presented to the board. So if a presenter has a map, site map, the public can see that. If there's documents, the public can see that across here. Also, you have people that can't get out from their homes at night. Especially when you have them here at the town park. It's a very dark and windy road. So people that are, I'm a senior citizen. There's people older than I am that will not drive this road if you come in person. So I believe the Zoom, since I've been using Zoom a lot for other purposes, is a real positive way for the board to move forward. Not just the zoning board, the planning board, the town board, so forth and so on.
Good points, thank you.
Okay, now, this issue here, I live on 8 U Street, which is Yaw Street in Hillview, so I can see their house from my house, right? I don't know the people, full disclosure, I see them on occasion, I wave to them, whatever, but I don't see the reason why they have to go through all this fuss to put something in the back of their house which they're gonna enjoy, increase the value of their home, as well as increase the values of homes in the area. Because not all the people live on Hillview or Chestnut, where that neighborhood area tend to their homes. So they're gonna be making a significant investment to enjoy their property. I'm sure they pay their taxes. And some experience I've had in the past couple of years, that there are other entities in town that they have variance approved with. I don't say, you're doing your due diligence. The building code, everything you actually do is due diligence. But I think that the private owner seems to be a little more scrutiny than some of the other larger entities. So I think that I would go, you're gonna go ahead with this. The house, he's on top of that house, that they've sided it, it looks very nice. That house has been there for probably over 70 years, as long as Sylvia's been there. Right when the first house on the street. So I think, all said and done, I guess I'm putting it to the public. I don't live next to him, although I see the house. I don't see why he has to go through the hoops of just that 12-foot variance issue. I don't think, the house has been there, it's never had a fire, it's never had anything else that would prevent it from happening. So, I would recommend the board say, okay, this is a minor thing, through the variance, and let the gentleman be on his way in building his addition.
Thank you, appreciate the comments. With that, all the members of the public here tonight, any other questions from the board? Okay, all right, with that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion, Chairman.
Motion by Bob Seward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott Strabel. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, unfortunately, in a COVID-related world, we'll ask the gentleman if you could step out. You're welcome to stay to the end and come back in. I believe the next public hearing may be a little lengthy. Welcome to tune into the YouTube channel or simply call Allison tomorrow. You can see what transpired. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe.
It's a great point about the talk about.
Maybe these real fun. That one guy was rolling your way.
I think it does.
He was rolling our way.
Yeah, it was. It was very, going to be very tense.
I was coming at you.
Like collateral damage to you.
Kateri, we're off the record for the chatter, correct?
Yeah, but we're,
Oh, yeah, we're still streamed on YouTube.
I know. That's why I didn't say anything more.
If you folks came together tonight, feel free to slide the chairs together, that's fine.
That's all right. I
If
spent
you-
enough time with them.
You don't have to. Mine also. Yeah, that's all set, Dahlia? All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Town of East Greenbush Zoning Board of Appeals. We already called the meeting to order earlier, but we'll go back through a roll call for your benefit. Go with an introduction of our board members, starting on my right.
Tom Hickey.
John Conway?
Matt Ostergaard.
Scott Strabel.
Bob Seward.
I'm the chairman, Jeff Pengburn. To my right, our Board of Appeals attorney, Bill Hesney. Secretary, Allison Lovely. Our court stenographer, Kateri Radigan. And our director of planning and zoning, Adam Yagelski here. With the assistant, Dahlia Schwarowitz, by the door, was graceful to help everybody in tonight. Thank you very much. We're being live streamed on the Town of East Greenbush YouTube channel. With the camera on top of the orange cone, just so you know. For logistics, we are fine with everybody should maintain masks when not speaking. If
If you wish to speak, we ask that you address the board and come up to the podium just so we can hear a little better. You're welcome to take your mask off once you get up to the podium, just like we are here. You're welcome to leave them on when you talk too. We just need to make sure that the stenographer can hear. It's a pretty good room for acoustics, so we're pretty lucky in here. But with that, to review why we're here tonight, an applicant for a variance is being afforded a public hearing to appeal the decision of the code enforcement officer. The legal criteria used by the board in determining the disposition of the appeal is defined by state law, is documented in the comprehensive zoning law, and was provided to the applicant at the time of their application. Based on this guidance, the applicant is expected to present his or her case to the zoning board of appeals, and then the public will be afforded an opportunity to comment on the application. We request all comments and questions be addressed to the board and not directly to the applicant. The board will then review the materials submitted as well as the testimony presented at this hearing by both the applicant and the public, and will either determine the disposition of the appeal by majority vote tonight or table the public hearing to a future date. As per town code, any member of the public wishing to speak today shall not be required to disclose his or her name, address, or any other contact related information. We do ask that anyone wishing to speak, please use the podium to facilitate us all hearing well. So with that, I will open public hearing number 2020-07, the appeal of Anthony DiGiulio of 5 Rosebud Court, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to construct an 18-foot by 16-foot shed in the rear yard with a proposed rear setback of 6 feet. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law. Section 2.6.6E, residential district, R2, area and bulk schedule. The required rear setback in the R2 zoning district is 25 feet. Therefore, the proposed action requires an area variance for the property located at 5 Rosebud Court, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 144.14-1-47. Within the record, we have notification of zoning review action from Rensselaer County. After having carefully reviewed the information submitted as part of the subject referral, the Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. We have a memo dated August 27, 2020 from the Planning Board. And after some discussion from the board, the following motion was made. A motion was made by Chairman Maston as follows. The Planning Board accepts Don Patton's report and forwards a report to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but the Planning Board gives a negative recommendation on the variance. We have a detailed report included in the record. That motion carried by a 5-2 votes for the negative recommendation, excuse me. And we have in here an authorization form from Anthony DiGiulio, giving Anthony DiGiulio permission to speak on their behalf tonight. Before we get started, we have several letters from residents. We'll hold those off until the public comment portion. One aspect has come in, a theme throughout the comment letters and some questions that came into the town planning office, and that's regarding potential deed restrictions on the property. For that, we asked legal counsel to just provide us some guidance and an update for the public also on the deed restrictions as they apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, municipalities play no part whatsoever in the enforcement of private deed restrictions. Because of the fact they're a private deed restriction. It's something in the chain of title that you have or take title subject to when you acquire title to a piece of real property. If your property has a deed restriction, if your neighbor has a deed restriction, those are private restrictions, okay? The municipality has no part whatsoever in enforcing those, okay? If you have a question about what your rights are with respect to a private deed restriction that you may have, that's something you consult with your attorney. But that's a private right that you may have. It has nothing to do with the municipality enforcing it. It has nothing to do with the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's not something we can consider. because it's just not something that's part of our duty with respect to enforcing the zoning laws of the town of East Queens.
Thank you, Bill. We thought that was important because it is a decision that was determined through the court systems of the state of New York. It's not something that the town of East Queens has any say over. Mr. Hesney's gone through case law, and basically that's what the courts have established, so those are the rules we are bound by. So just for clarification, for anybody here tonight, we are here only to consider whether or not a 16-foot by 18-foot shed on this property can have a reduced rear yard setback from the 25 feet required. So that's the only action that we are under consideration tonight. So with that, I'd like to ask the applicant if you could present the case of what's being asked, just summarize actually, but if you could go through, yeah, come on up, you can go through your proposal, and then ideally, feel free to take it off at the podium, yep. And ideally go through the 5 criteria that we need to consider as part of the area variance.
The 5 criteria on which sheet that I received?
Yeah.
I have the, is it on this one?
It's
Make sure I'm
this one right
correct.
here.
Here,
Actually, you can have this one.
I think I have one printed. Okay, I think that's. So, my name is Anthony Julio, I live at 5 Rosebud Court. Going through these 5 criteria, I do not believe it will have an undesirable change on the neighborhood or the character of it in any way. Which I could go sequentially. Number 2, where the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible. I'm not sure what that means exactly with regards to the applicant being achieved feasible. So I want to build a 16 by 18 shed, so that's feasible in every way.
Is there a way to build a shed without requiring a setback variance?
No, that's why I'm here today. So, number 3, the requested area variance is substantial. Not at all. It's right off the back of Cemetery Road. I think 6 feet it is. So whatever that's on my sheet, it's 6 feet. That's not substantial. It's not gonna degrade from anybody's homes at all. People have fences and sheds in my development and development across from me, so I don't think it would have any negative impact basically on anyone's homes. And then the impact of this is not a wetland. There is no environmental condition that will occur if I do build a shed here. And then search Board of Appeals, whether the difficulty was self-created. What does that mean, the difficulty was self-created? I just want to build the 18 by 16 shed. That's basically it.
A good way to summarize that.
The difficulty was self-created.
Difficulty being self-created in the sense that if you could place the shed in a different location so it didn't violate the setback requirements, then it's a self-created problem.
Given the space limitations on my yard being 0.33 of an acre, I believe that positioning it where I want to position it would be of best interest to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. Questions from the board?
How high is this shed gonna be?
The walls will be about 8 feet high, so the arc 12 feet, 14 feet tops. Not very high, just a normal shed, nothing too expansive.
Are you aware that in the R2 district, which is where you are, you're allowed to build a 10-foot by 12-foot shed and be only 5 feet away from your setbacks?
Yeah, I think it's 120 square feet if I'm correct.
Right.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Is there a specific reason why you need to be bigger than 10 by 12?
Well, eventually, I would like to put a pool in, so I would like to make it a pool shed. So I think that a 10 by 12 would be, I know, really too small for that for me. For being a pool shed.
Anthony, is that why it's in the back corners, because you want to put a pool in? Can you
It would-
maybe explain why it's gotta be?
It would just look more aesthetically pleasing to walk out my yard and see a shed in the corner versus right next to my garage, or right when I walk out. I think I provided satellite views to you all to see where the setback would be and where the shed would be. So I just think that for an overall, having it be symmetrical, I think that would be the best place for the shed to be.
Am I correct in believing that the shed is going to go on that concrete pad?
Yeah.
That's where it's going?
Yep.
Okay. And I noticed you mentioned that many people on the street have fences. You don't have fences.
I don't know what that's on.
Have you thought about that?
Of course,
I mean, in terms of the pool.
you have that legally, you have to have a fence around your pool, whether it's see-through or not, but I thought about putting a fence around my yard. But the first step of my process, I bought a foreclosed home in this neighborhood, so I've been trying to upkeep it as time goes on, and I'm just trying to do one step at a time here. And I think that I would really like the shed to in the next step of my process.
So what's the distance between the back of your porch and your property line?
50 feet.
Is that an exact, or is that just a?
That's from the back of my garage.
Yeah,
So
the
there's
porch
also a
comes
back.
out significantly.
Yeah,
further.
so I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I know it's 50 feet from my garage. Maybe 35 feet, 35 to 50 feet.
So turning it vertically, you wouldn't be able to get the 12-foot off the garage and still meet the rear setback and have it off the side setback as well.
I'm sure you could, but it would look very funny and abnormal. I always emphasize having a home with the shed in the corner of the yard and not close to my garage and close to my house, and just having a normal looking home in the town of East Greenbush, rather than having it abnormally set somewhere in my yard where I wouldn't like it. That's why I'm here today.
Andy, have you reached out to the cemetery association or to the board or anybody from the property that owns the roadway behind you?
I'm sure there is, but you sent a letter, correct?
Yes, we
Yes.
have, yeah. You have not talked to anybody?
I know them personally, but I've not talked to them, or I do see them every day drive by, but so whether they're here or not, they can see.
And it is a tree-lined roadway,
Sparsely.
which is interesting, only the trees are on your side. They are on the property line, the large trees, or are they within?
They're well within the cemetery property line. And they're sparsely, they're not very densely. I would imagine every 75 feet, 100 feet between them, and they're about 200-year-old trees.
Questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. What I'd like to do now, and just as a matter of procedure, I will read in the comment letters that were received, just so that they are on the record, and the public has a chance to hear them, and we'll also allow the applicant a chance to respond back at the conclusion of the public comments. We'll give you another chance to respond to anything you hear. So, to the Zoning Board of Appeals, this letter is in response to your notice of a public hearing on September 8, 2020, regarding construction of shed at 5 Rosebud Court, appeal number 2020-07, Anthony DiGiulio. I possibly will not be in attendance at said hearing. Everyone, I feel, has a right to an opinion, good or bad. I'm sure not everyone will agree on this matter, but I feel, having been friendly with all the neighbors on this street for 21 years, there has not been any conflict. My opinion in this matter is, I don't care whose house it is, there is never enough room in a house / garage, etc. when occupied. A storage shed might help with the clutter. The people across the street, sorry, it's in cursive, so I'm just trying to pick it up. Across the street had to take their small shed down because of restrictions. At that time, they had 3 children, now they have 5 children. Regarding 5 Rosebud Court, I see the clutter with backyard and every vehicle that travels up the cemetery road sees it as well. I would say a shed storing the clutter would be an answer to this problem and others as well. I would like this letter to remain between you and I, sorry, as I have to live here. So I won't name where it came from, but it's there. Another letter dated September 1st, dear board members, per certified mail, dated August 27, 2020, regarding the appeal. We offer the following comments, concerns to the board members. We strongly recommend disapproval of DiGiulio's request for a variance to construct an 18-foot by 16-foot shed in his rear yard. After a more than 6-month house hunting process in 2007, we moved from Atlanta, Georgia to 2 Rosebud Court upon retiring from the U.S. Army. For all the places in the upstate area, we chose Rosebud Court due to the strong character of its neighborhood. Although my neighbors who meticulously maintained their properties were a large part of our decision process, we also valued the stringent property deed requirements that mandated that the character of the street would forever be maintained. One such deed requirement states that there will not be any sheds constructed in the neighborhood. Although one home, 6 Rosebud Court, does have a shed. It is our understanding that the East Grimmer Planning Board approved this shed based upon a swimming pool that was installed. We were not consulted regarding the deed variance on 6 Rosebud Court. But in addition to the deed issue, we have grave concerns regarding DiGiulio's motives for such a large building. The rudimentary drawing of the proposal leaves much to our imagination as to what the intent of the building is, considering he already has a large 2-car garage. Will the shed add value to the character of the neighborhood? Will the material, color, structure, design blend into the character of the neighborhood? Will the height and pitch of the roof complement the neighborhood? Will access to the building, considering that there is only a 6-foot clearance to his property line, complement the neighborhood? None of the answers to these questions are offered from such a rudimentary drawing and proposal. Finally, as mentioned previously, it was the character of the Rosebud neighborhood that attracted us to East Grimmer in 2007. That character has been well maintained by our neighbors, with the exception of Anthony DiGiulio. In his short tenure on the street, he has screamed obscenities at one of his senior citizen neighbors. When the neighbor advised him to stop building a shed without the town's approval, the foundation was poured anyway. He parks and drives on his lawn, races up and down the street, and plays loud music at night that can be heard throughout the street. Given his history, only the worst can be envisioned by the construction of a large facility in his backyard. We appreciate your support in maintaining our neighborhood's character by not granting approval of the DiGiulio proposal. Another letter dated September 1st, we are opposed to the variance request for the main reason that all houses on Rosebud Court have deed restrictions against detached sheds. Our deed stated, quote, "There shall not be above ground pools or storage sheds of any kind erected or maintained," end quote. It was my understanding that one reason the deed restrictions were put in place was to be respectful for the funeral processions on the cemetery road, as well as the character of our street. When my husband and I decided to start building our home in 2002, we became aware of the deed restrictions and had to incur considerable expenses to add on to our garage, so we were unable to have a shed on our property. Another neighbor on the street also added on to their existing garage so that they could provide additional storage for their yard tools. I'm also aware of another neighbor that purchased a shed and then had to remove it to abide to the deed restrictions. In the event that the deed restrictions are not enforced by the town of East Greenbush, I have obtained a copy of the handwritten drawing of the proposal for the shed, which has been submitted to the planning board. This drawing lacks what the purpose of the structure is going to be used for, what it is made of, how it is to be accessed, and how high the roof line is estimated to be. This type of building does not fit with the character of our street. Again, for these reasons, we are opposed to the variance. Another letter I am writing in regards to the Town of East Greenbush Zoning Board of Appeals, appeal number 2020-07. I will not be able to make the September 8, 2020 meeting because of prior commitments. I urge the zoning board to vote no to the area variance for this said case. The construction of an 18-foot by 16-foot shed does not fit into the character of the neighborhood, and it would be an eyesore. A building this size does not belong adjacent to the solemn tree-lined entrance to Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. Even though it is called a shed, it is more like a garage or barn. Mr. DiGiulio only submitted a poorly drawn sketch. No elevation views or detailed plans were submitted. It is unknown how high the building will be and how large the roof will be. What would the building be used for? This building is big enough to fit a car in. Will there be an additional driveway? What would the access to this building? Based on Mr. Giulio's past history of not respecting his two adjacent neighbors' property lines and planting trees on their property because he did not properly survey his property boundaries, I would be very suspicious of the intended use for this building. In addition, there was a very large concrete pad built last year on the property. I am not sure what the intent of this large concrete pad is for. I hope the zoning board of appeals will do the right thing and vote no. Another letter via email Friday, September 4th. Dear Sir, Madam, we are the property owners of 10 Redwood Court, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. We are writing this letter in regard to the notice we received about the appeal of Anthony DiGiulio of 5 Rosebud Court, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. We want to mention that we are against his proposed to construct a 18-foot by 16-foot shed in his rear yard because we think that the shed's physically inappropriate location will cause a visual pollution in our neighborhood. Therefore, we would appreciate a lot if a decision that complies with sound zoning law can be made by the zoning board of appeals. One last email received Sunday, September 6th, as a homeowner at 3 Rosebud Court, Rensselaer, New York, 12144, and writing relative to the above appeal number 2020-07 involving the homeowner at 5 Rosebud Court, Rensselaer, New York, Anthony DiGiulio. I am writing to restrict the area variance in this residential district of Rosebud Court. In accordance with the property deed, there are no sheds and or other storage units allowed in this development. I am strongly opposed to this area variance. That is the end of the letters received. So with that, I'll open it up to any members of the public that wish to speak tonight, that want to add additional comment to the record. Yep.
We have rules that should be followed. They're not just made just to be made. You have a variance of 25 feet for a very large shed on a property, then that variance should be maintained. If he wants to build a big shed, then he needs to put it in a part of his property that is 25 feet to maintain that regulation. You do not just have regulations to break them. You have regulations to follow. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
I'm John Sawyer. I live on 2 Rosebud Court. Lived there since 2007. You read one of my letters tonight. I don't have anything against Mr. DiGiulio. I really don't. He's a neighbor. As you can see back here, we have a strong neighborhood. And part of my letter, and a common theme to a couple of other ones, were the deed issue which you addressed. And I got that. But the deed is a legal issue, and we touched on a couple of parts of the discussion, and Mr. DiGiulio touched on it too, is the deed was there, the conveyances were there, the restrictions were there to maintain the character of the neighborhood. And so that's what most of us are talking about. When we say the deed, we're actually talking about the character of the neighborhood. When I moved here in 2007, out of all the places we could have moved to from Atlanta, Georgia, we picked Rosebud Court because of the character of the neighborhood. And that character was established by the original intent of the owner of the property, as Pat Crystal. And he designed in his mind the future of that street. How many lights you can have on your property, who can have fences, who can't have fences, how many trees you need in the absence of a shed on the property. He envisioned the character of the neighborhood. So this isn't so much about the deed, the legal issue. This is about getting back to Pat Crystal's original intent of maintaining the character of the neighborhood. So I just hope you consider that. And I know all of us have probably addressed the deed issue, and that's the legal part, and we got that. But it's really the character of the neighborhood we want to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just have one question, because if we're gonna allow the shed with a variance difference, what are we gonna do about the pool? Is it gonna be an above ground pool or in ground? Because on our street, we have in ground pools and not above ground pools. So we were put in the middle of a situation with a good friend. They didn't have the finance in the beginning to do an in-ground pool, and they came to us and they said, you know, could we, and we had to say no as a homeowner, because we felt the deed was what was right, and that everybody would have to have an in-ground pool, and that was part of the deed. So I guess if we're gonna allow the shed, then we would need to know what his intent with the pool is. Because then it would be, if you allow this, then are you gonna just allow the above ground pool going through? That's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public wish to speak tonight? Seeing none, Anthony, you wish to add anything else to the record?
Sure. I do drive my cars on my property. I take my power washer and wash them in the back of my home. That's my only water spigot on my property, so I turn them, go in the back of my property to wash my cars. Again, I'm gonna reiterate, my only water spigot for my home is in the back of my home, so that's where I wash my cars on my lawn. I don't like to make oil spots on my driveway with the soap and stuff, number one. Number two is above ground pool, below ground pool. You know, with regards to the financing, I'm sorry to hear about that, but I would put a below ground pool in. And you know what, that is so far fetched right now in my mind, considering this meeting, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with regards to the pool after, once this whole thing is settled. So I wanna go one step at a time, that's what I want to say.
Thank you. Any additional questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tom Hickey, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John Conway, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries 6-0. The public hearing is closed. With that, just order of procedure, we will have no more public interaction with the board and the public or the applicant tonight. You are welcome to stay and listen in. You are welcome to leave, watch on YouTube, or feel free to call the planning office to see what transpires tonight. Allison or Dahlia, just want to see if anybody from the first public hearing stuck around, you know?
No, I don't think so, they were left.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, no other public hearings tonight. We can move on to seeker determination. We'll do them in order. They're both quick. I have a memo dated September 8, 2020 in regards to appeal number 2020-06 Dominique Family Irrevocable Trust for 8 Hillview Avenue, application for an area variance. The zoning board of appeals has considered this project under seeker and determines that this project meets the requirements for a type 2 action and no further seeker review is required. We also have a memo dated September 8, 2020 in regards to appeal 2020-07 Anthony DiGiulio for 5 Rosebud Court, application for an area variance. The zoning board of appeals has considered this project under seeker and determines that this project meets the requirements for a type 2 action and no further seeker review is required. So with that, we can enter into a workshop and deliberation. We'll start with the Dominique Family Irrevocable Trust and open it up for comments from the board. Anybody wish to start?
I'll start. Good discussion, right? So a couple of things that stood out for me specifically. You know, a lot of talk about looking backwards from the street and having the proposed addition be in line with the existing structure, which I think works in its favor. I think you brought up the point, Chairman, that, you know, 5 feet meets the fire code, and this is gonna be greater than 5 feet the way it's proposed. And I think, you know, the applicant talked about cost and stylistic sort of reasons, you know, the gable roof, the existing roof line and so forth. So those are all things that to me matter in this case, and, you know, looking at that neighborhood, knowing that neighborhood fairly well, I don't think this is undesirable for that area, so. What I'm kind of parked in my mind right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Scott. I mean, it's clearly designed to stay in the character with maintaining the roof lines. It appears to be that the way that it's laid out is to actually reduce the impact on any neighbors, in that it's shielded by the garage on the one side, no rear neighbors in that area, that there's a structure. It's substantial. It's it's a significant change in the variance, but that would probably be the only item of the 5 considerations that they probably don't meet.
But tried to work the geometry, I think, to make it fit, right, that L shape that I think you brought up, or somebody did.
Yeah, I think because of the previous additions that have taken place there, they're, like jigsaw puzzle, they're putting the pieces together and laid it out the best they can to still maintain access to their area, while still maintaining character and not having any additional impact on any of the neighbors or, the visual of the neighborhood.
Yeah, dovetail off of what you're saying a little bit, Tom, how I kind of put it in my mind, the way they are configuring that, they have no impact on their neighbors, which is great. Always feel concerned about that. It's more like he has an impact on himself. And he's impacting on his own garage, his garage isn't close enough. And the one concern I had was the fire hazard or the fire restrictions, and you were able to get the code is 3 feet requirement, and they're gonna almost double it. Makes me feel a lot better about that.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. For me, it was, 90% of technical issues, whether something could be done in terms of the fire considerations here. And it's an impact on himself, but it's also an impact on future owners, that we should consider as well. I think when they said that this is going to improve the property, his use and enjoyment of the property and property values, I'm not sure I bought into that 100% because we could be creating a dangerous situation here. But, if the fire department is okay with this and it meets the building codes, it seems like the property is very well maintained, and as you say, doesn't have any adverse impact on the neighborhood.
I think Tom was getting to a good point with the geometric constraints of this lot. It's only 50 feet wide, the entire lot, so this is a narrow lot. There's only so much you can do. The house is there already, the garage is there already. In the future, if he comes back with a new garage, maybe then it can be enforced to push the garage back a little bit, get the separation, but it's not even in front of us right now. The fire code was big for me. The neighbor who does see the property from the rear, which is really gonna be where this is a little bit noticeable, because it looks like the backyard's open, didn't have an issue with it, so I think it's good. And I think the fact that, Thomas, you were working with the applicant on it's designed with the character of the house beside it, the builder said side of the same, and it is a well-kept property, seems to make sense. No other comment, anybody, we can make a motion tonight?
I'll do it. Just remind me, Jeff, when we get to it, if there's certain spots that.
Yeah, I would run through this whole.
The whole thing, yeah, you got it. I got it. Okay. Reading lesson here we go. In the matter by Dominique Family Irrevocable Trust for an area variance, resolution of final decision from the Board of Appeals, appeal number 2020-06. Whereas an application has been filed by the Dominique Family Irrevocable Trust of 8 Hillview Avenue, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to construct a 250 square foot addition. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law, sections 2.5.1 D05B. The existing garage shall be located no closer to the principal building than 12 feet. The proposed addition leaves a distance of 5 feet to the existing garage, and whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting an area variance at the property located at 8 Hillview Avenue, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 154-.60-5-3. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published a notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in record on August 28, 2020. And whereas notice of public hearing has provided by certified mail to the owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Town Planning Board and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 to consider this appeal. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenbush at its August 26, 2020 meeting provided a report of the requested area variance for the recommendation. And whereas at this hearing, the applicant, as well as any and all persons interested in this appeal, were heard, their statements recorded, and various written materials, including exhibits, if any, were entered into record. And whereas all statements, written material, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered, and whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and teeker, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. There will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, as the proposed structure fits the character of the neighborhood. Note, there will be no change looking back from the street, and it sits within the existing lines of the house. There is no other method available to the applicant, as it's a 50-foot wide, slim lot, and for cost and stylistic reasons, being the gable roof, the pitch, and the existing roof line, it needs to be in this location. The requested variance is substantial, but the shape proposed tries to maximize the distance between the buildings. You would lose access to the backyard if the garage were to connect to the proposed structure, and at 5 foot, it meets the fire code. The proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood. The applicant wants to extend along the existing lines of the house, and there is ample space in the backyard to do so. And the alleged difficulty is self-created, but should not preclude the approval of the request for an area variance. Resolved that the application for an area variance for the rear setback of 5 foot be granted with no conditions. This resolution was moved by, I can go back to you now? By, okay, me, Scott Stravell. And seconded by Matt Ostagai.
We have any more?
At a meeting held on September 8th, 2020. Yes, I knew it was 29th.
There's the motion and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I was just going to, I think I would prefer that maybe we echo the planning board there, language about the fire rated construction requirements being met.
Do you like to add a condition?
I think we should add a condition, and even in the resolution, I wouldn't necessarily make the determination that it meets the fire code.
So make a recommendation that the applicant coordinate with the building inspector on the fire code requirements.
It's a fair condition, sure.
You okay with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Any discussion on the second condition that's already addressed in the planning boards, that it would meet the existing roof line and be of the same materials and colors as the rest of the house? Because that was specifically laid out in the recommendation from the planning board.
Agreed.
So the first motion, applicants coordinate with building departments on fire code requirements. And second, that the aesthetic design be stylistic, consistent with the existing house and siding material.
Correct.
Roof line.
Roof line and siding material.
Yep.
Gentlemen. So the vote will be in favor of the motion with the two added conditions. The vote was taken as follows. John Conway,
Yes.
Matt Ostergaard.
Yes.
Tom Hickey.
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Stewart III.
Yes.
Scott Chapel.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all. We will move on to 2020-06, deliberations and workshop. I do want to remind the board members that deed restrictions are not our jurisdiction. That's just that one point of clarification. I will open up my comments on this application. However, when a member of the public, I think, did bring up a good point about the character of the neighborhood is at play a little bit here, in that the existing homes along that stretch, at least along the cemetery roadway, do not have sheds existing. So this, the existing character is not to have storage sheds in the rear yards on that side of the street in that neighborhood. So, and it is there. This is also a variance for a large shed within the small setback in the rear yard. We have these issues sometimes with some of the smaller lots. I believe the applicant mentioned it's a third of an acre lot, so there's not a lot of room. However, there is a yard, and this is a self-created hardship in that it is a large shed and it is being placed close to the property line. So I do struggle with this one.
Yeah, another thing that, this may not be relevant either, but in terms of the character of the neighborhood, the road, I guess the cemetery road is a private road, so in a sense, we don't have to be concerned about that. But we've seen other cases where we've had lots go directly from one road to another road, one street to another street. And in that case, we found that, in fact, some properties do have two front yards, which the setback would be the same issue, but you could, in that case, and I'm not saying this is the case here because it's a private road, but in a case like that, you couldn't have a shed either at the front yards. So I'm not sure that we're bound by that, it being a private road and everything, but I think it does speak to the character of the neighborhood. The fact that you'd have a shed on that road where there is none presently.
Yeah, I think I lean on a few things, is if there's other options. So I kind of come back to a lot of the times, if there's other available options. And this one appears to have several other available options. Relocating, changing the side, adding on to your structure, a lot of different ways to, for lack of a better term, skin a cat on this one. And also it's a significant proposed variance, going from 25 feet down to 6 feet. That along with, a significant impact to the character of the neighborhood and also the neighbors. Clearly on this one, there's several neighbors that feel that this would be impact upon them in a lot of different ways outside of the deed restrictions, which is a legal matter. But it seems that when we look at these 5 items, that these seem to stack up, that there's a lot of different ways for this to be accomplished.
All the key points for me. There are other options. I fully agree.
Could set a tough precedence. Yeah.
The matter in front of us tonight, I keep trying to refocus, the matter in front of us is simply, do we allow only a 6-foot setback to a large secondary structure, which once you go above 120 square feet, our town code seems to say you're no longer just a secondary structure, an accessory structure, you become a little bit more of a primary structure. So I think the tree line nature of that street, the fact that that street was intended to stay with some kind of open sight lines through it, the houses are all well kept, the yards through there. I have family nearby and there all the time. I know some members of this board walk back through the cemetery too. So that roadway is used a lot by a lot of different people for different purposes. So I do struggle with this one. Any discussion?
Can I get over in?
No, unfortunately, no, sorry. Any other discussion from the board? Everybody looking to make a motion tonight? I'll try to summarize this. In the matter by Anthony DiGiulio for an area variance, resolution and final decision of Board of Appeals, appeal number 2020-07. Whereas an application has been filed by Anthony DiGiulio of 5 Rosebud Court, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to construct an 18-foot by 16-foot shed in the rear yard with a proposed rear setback of 6 feet. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law. Sections 2.6.6E Residential District R2 Area and Bulk Schedule. The required rear setback in the R2 zoning district is 25 feet. And whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting an area variance at the property located at 5 Rosebud Court, East Greenwich, New York, tax map number 144.14-1-47. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published a notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in the record on August 28, 2020. And whereas notice of the public hearing was provided by certified mail to the owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Town Planning Board and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, September 8, 2020 to consider this appeal. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenwich at its August 26, 2020 meeting provided a report of the requested area variance with a recommendation to deny the request. And whereas at this hearing, the applicant as well as any and all persons interested in this appeal were heard, their statements recorded, and various written material, including exhibits, if any, were entered into the record. And whereas all statements, written material, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered. And whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and the teacher, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. 1, there will be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as surrounding properties do not have accessory storage buildings in the rear yard along this street. 2, there are other methods available to the applicant as the lot has additional space and a smaller shed could be placed elsewhere within the lot meeting the setback requirements. 3, the requested variance is substantial as it is a reduction of 25 feet down to only 6 feet and would place it nearby a tree-lined street with aesthetic character. 4, the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as the scale of and location of the building in proximity to the property line would be out of character with surrounding houses. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created, however, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for an area variance for a rear setback of 6 feet be denied, period. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by
I'll second it, Jeff.
Bob Seward III at a meeting duly held on September 8, 2020. Thank you, Bob. Any discussion on the motion? I will clarify that a yes vote is a vote for denial. A vote was taken as follows. John Conway.
Yes.
Matt Ostagai.
Yes.
Tom Hickey.
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III.
Yes.
Scott Scribell.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 to deny the area variance. With that, that concludes all of the new business on the agenda. Just a couple housekeeping items. Our next meeting is September 22nd, 2020. 2 appeals on the agenda, both sign related actually. One from Regeneron regarding 3 area variances for signs, and the other in the new mixed-use buildings, or excuse me, the new commercial buildings built as part of the PDD at Springhurst Drive. where Chris Pinoli is now located, so, one of the new restaurants coming in. With that, Allison, approval of minutes from August 11th. We all eligible?
Except for Scott,
Scott needs to.
and, John Conway provided me with changes that I've made, so.
Okay, excellent. John, would you like to make that motion to accept
I
those
will
minutes?
move to approve the minutes, yes.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tom Hickey. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Scott Cabell abstains. Motion carries 5-0-1. Thank you very much. With that, actually, one of the things Bill and I worked out, we no longer need a motion to end the meeting, but we will adjourn for the evening. So, thank you very much.